Hello and welcome to another episode of the CollabTalk Podcast, where we discuss the convergence of technology, business productivity, and collaboration culture. My guest today is Hussein Hallak, an entrepreneur and the CEO of Decentrum, helping organizations transform through design, AI-driven insights, and data-focused strategies. Welcome, Hussein.
Thank you for having me here.
It's great to have
I'm
you,
excited.
and it's I know it's late over there at the getting ready to do the global travels. You're out on the road, but we're both on the western portion of North America. Usually, it's cold and wet out here, so hopefully you're at least enjoying the better weather.
It's actually pretty nice here in Dubai, so I can't complain at all. This is the best time to be in Dubai.
Well, we're talking today about the future of gamification, which is a topic that I got interested in all the way back in the late 90s. And so as social media was starting to grow and there was increasing interest in going and using leaderboards and other gamification techniques, and certainly in like sales organizations and marketing driven organizations around that. But we're specifically going to jump in and talk about revolutionizing business and education. So the enterprise and education that utilize these kinds of tools using AI and other immersive technologies. So there's a lot to cover. I always like to start though. Why don't you give a broader background of yourself and your company and what you do?
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, it is a very exciting topic, and I'm excited about talking about it. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. Decentrum is my third tech startup, but I've started over 22 companies. A lot of them are ad agencies, creative companies, creative consultancies, and I worked mostly before. Starting Decentrum as the GM of Launch Academy, which was the one of the top incubators in North America, helping thousands of founders who collectively raised over $2.5 billion. So I'm used to working on new ideas and helping entrepreneurs build those ideas and take them to make them a reality. And Decentrum, put simply, is like a venture incubator or venture builder for companies. So we help companies take those ideas and make them a reality in the emerging tech space, which is a very uncertain space, a lot of changes, a lot of demand, and a lot of things that are constantly moving. So instead of them dedicating a team and working hard to kind of get there, and by the time they probably are set up to actually benefit from the trend has moved along. We are fast movers. We help them explore those ideas and see what is possible, and build with them something interesting. So it's a very exciting space and a very unique kind of model that we're excited about bringing to the market.
Well, I don't know what the latest numbers are of the number of like new business ventures that fail. I've not gone and looked at the stat in many years around that, but it's a good portion of them. It's a majority of businesses that fail like in the first 2 years around that. And one of the things my first startup back in the late 90s, where we were accepted into an incubator program, and I credit that with a lot of one, networking, two, just having a group of peers to ask questions, to share your experiences, what you're going through, that they've likely been through it or who have not yet, and they're also interested in the answers that you get from others that have gone through that. But that perspective of reaching out, having a community around you to kind of share the pains and the successes is something that I'm glad I found early on, because that's become a big part of my career, is helping with those kinds of. I've not been part of a formal incubator program, but I've been an advisor into several of them, and I'm currently an advisor for one. So yeah, it's an exciting space. Plus, it's just fun being around entrepreneurs that are bringing in really cool ideas and being able to help them with, hey, I can help you with your marketing and operations and that structure. I'm an expert on those topics. And then I get to sit in and see all the cool, cutting edge, bleeding edge innovation that's happening. It's just a fun space to be in.
Definitely. Startups, I mean, in startups and the way that we're working with in, let's say, emerging areas and emerging markets, you can think about it as if you're walking through a minefield. Now, if you're walking the beaten path, uh, somebody has already walked the path, it's clear, you can walk it. So that's what existing corporations have established. But for those who are, trailblazers, pioneers, they're walking into a minefield and you don't know where you're going to step and you're going to blow something off. And that's what ends up happening, unfortunately, for startups, is that there were the key word today. I was working with an incredible team that we're hopefully partnering with, and the key word that I explained to them, the difference between a startup and a company, is uncertainty. So in those areas, and with all these technologies kind of now you have to catch up with, the keyword is uncertainty. So that's why a lot of companies have to raise a ton of money, because they're testing stuff.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as research, the same thing as experimentation. You're uncertain what you're going to find. You're uncertain where the data is going to take you, where the experiments that you're going to do in the market will take you. And as you continue to experiment, you hopefully will stumble on something, and hopefully it's a discovery that will earn you a lot of money. So there is, what we do is, and as you said, in regards to incubators, what they do is they give you a method and several frameworks that help you organize how you test, so that you do it more methodically, you do it in such a way that it accelerates and helps you get to results that you can count on to build on top of. And
Yeah.
that's great value. And of course, surrounding yourself with people that have been there before you, they can say, don't step here, step there, don't go here, be aware
Yeah.
of that. And especially if they're a few steps ahead of you, those who have been there, a long time ago, have forgotten what I mean. They may remember what it's like, and it's good to learn from them, but they've forgotten, the last few steps. So actually, you learn a lot from people who are a few steps ahead of you, more than the people who are like a lot ahead of you.
Well, where a lot of the help can come from, like I'm, to your point, I'm not able to go in and advise a company on, necessarily on. I can share my experience, my perspective on their technology that they're out there creating something that's brand new and trying to go and develop the market behind there. But it's kind of like the shift towards companies that were, pure cloud. So it used to be that going way back, like you'd have to have a physical location and hire
Mm,
employees and have the structure around that. And there was a lot of that overhead. But now, and then it kind of transitioned to where it's like, well, you can have people that are hybrid, that are spread out, but there's still servers and software and structure and things that you need to have. Now you can literally be one person sitting in your home office, your bedroom, uh, um,
yeah.
online, just go and build out a profile, begin the company, go and add all these. So go and create the innovation, whatever it is. I'm trying not to say widget, but whatever the thing is, that the product or service that you're doing. But there's so much that you can go and do and leverage without getting bogged down. Like I remember with my first startup, getting caught up in discussions around some of the HR issues and some of the other legal pieces for that. Where so much of that now, again, you can have that expertise of people that have been through that portion of it. You should not be worrying about. I guess this is my point here is, should not be worrying about those pieces which can easily be outsourced, that you can hire experts or leverage frameworks or models or whatever for the operational, the HR, the like all of those other pieces, so that you can focus on that innovation that is actually at the core of your business. Because that was I remember when I was in business school, talking about, companies that a number of them that they were failing because they were getting bogged down in those topics, those issues that had nothing to do with why they were in business in the first place. So they couldn't get out of their own way. And that's why a lot of startup technology entrepreneurs then bring in seasoned leaders that know the business side of things so that they can focus on that service or technology.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, having someone who to mentor you, to advise you, who has been there, but not only been there, has let's say achieved it in such a way that or done that they've tested several frameworks. They've worked with different companies and seen how these things apply in different positions or in different, let's say, situations. I think these become invaluable insights that companies can say, okay, they instead of trying to discover, because a lot of things have been, let's say, seen and discovered and tested, and they can immediately say, well, here's what you need to apply, don't bother with these things. Here is I think one of the key things when it came to marketing, for example, I advised quite a few companies when it came to marketing. I said, well, for you, a lot of times I say, well, I'll go after, let's say, Facebook ads or something. It's like, well, the stage that you're in, Facebook ads will be very expensive for you. Try these areas. Have you tried this software? Sometimes it's as simple as, these are the tools, because sometimes, as you know, it takes you a while to find the tool that works best.
Mhm.
On the outside, they all have great marketing, but then after you played with them and you worked with them at certain situations, you want, like, don't start here. This will cost you a lot of money down the line, or into, let's say, you will get stuck in trying to do this, or trying to, let's say, scale. Or so I think these are invaluable information that you get from those business leaders. So it's we highly advise startups to, and companies, to have advisors, to have mentors, to learn from others as much as possible. Because why do the things that has already been done? Why
Reinvent
walk
the
the path
wheel. Right. I know.
exactly? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, this is a great topic. I would love, though. Let's jump into the actual topic of let's talk about gamification. I know that, again, this is a term that's been out there. Like, how do you define gamification in today's tech landscape? Like, how do you talk to clients about this? And then from there, how is AI currently transforming, or what has it already changed about uh, gamification strategies as you talk with clients?
Absolutely. The best way I can describe gamification, or for companies, is, I tell them, you want your customers to achieve their goals, and you want them to achieve it fast, and you want them to achieve it in a way that's enjoyable for them, that they would like to do it. A good example of that, you familiar with the app Duolingo, for
Of
example.
course.
Uh,
Every day I'm
so
familiar with it.
yeah, it's a gamification. It's a
Yeah,
gamified way to learn language. They could have easily said, here are the words, here is the sentence that you need to learn, here are the definitions of the sentences, here's the information. But that's boring, and people are like, yeah, you're giving me the information, but this is not fun. This is a chore. Whereas what they've done is they gamified the experience, and they made it fun to learn language, and they made it like so that you would want to come back again and again and again. And that is the key for helping customers achieve what they want to achieve, but to help them achieve it in such a way that is fun, that is enjoyable for them, that they want to do it again and again. A lot of people, when they hear gamification, they think games. And it is kind of, sometimes you're turning something into a game, but you need to think of it from the point of view of the user, and of the point of view of the customer. The customer wants to achieve something. One way of doing that is rewarding them. So one element of gamification is rewarding, which is what points do. We all have, what is it, airline miles and stuff like that. You're
mhm.
you're already going to fly anyway. Why don't we give you something to collect? And some people, if they're competitive, they say, like, look how many miles I have, and some people don't want to even spend it. So people are attracted by different things, and if they're already going to have to do the same thing that they're going to have to do, like flying, or doing something, or buying groceries, or working with your company, whatever, in whatever field, why don't you make that fun? Why don't you make it engaging? Why don't you make it something where it has a competitive edge? Why don't you make them something where they can track their progress? So gamification is changing the experience, so that there is something in it for the user that attracts their attention, in addition to them achieving what they want to achieve. And that is something that companies are hard to wrap their head around because they think of a point system. Oh, our competitor did a point system. We have to do a point system. It's something that they have to do instead of thinking about it. It's like, here's the experience. How can we transform the experience so it's fun, engaging? It brings the user back and the customer back and back again so that they want to do it.
Right.
And that requires a shift of mindset. Addition to that, it requires an approach to technology that they may not have, because when you want to do point system, or you want to make it more enjoyable, or you want to use AI in the process, you need to have technical skills. So you need to think creatively. You need to engage the team, because you cannot just bring an outside company that doesn't know your customer, does not know your, you need to work with your team along with probably some outside companies that help you do that. And then you need to understand the implications of, you can design a gamified experience that is exceptional, but then the cost might be prohibitive.
Right.
It would be great if everybody's business is a AAA game, for example, but that requires a ton of money. So these are the elements. So it's that kind. It's a business transformation exercise that the business has to engage in, because that's the future. If you have to do it before your competitors do it, because then they would steal the customers and they will not come back to you.
And I think of too, I mean, there's plenty of examples that I've seen against over the last 20 plus years. I remember about that long ago working with an organization that had a knock on site. So network operating center, they had people that were, support organization in there, the network team itself, and they had leaderboards for regions for the closing of tickets. And so there was a little competition, and it was friendly. Like, no one's getting penalized for having the fewest, because the complexity of an issue you're trying to resolve. They're not all equal. But as these teams, as these regions, and they would reward at the end of the month the region that had the fastest. Is the first time I heard the metric, the mean time to resolution, MTTR, which saw it a couple other companies later on. That was like the metric. How fast are we taking in, understanding the ticket and closing it, solving the problem, getting back out there? But so they were doing like a monthly reward, and they would, fund like a little in-house party, buy them lunch, nicer lunch than what other people had, kind of thing. It was kind of lighthearted, but it became serious business. Like, it was the pride of also having the best numbers with our team and our region, versus the others. Looking at from a customer standpoint and attracting, I mean, it's a very different thing when it's external, but the principles are all the same. It's like you said, it's about you're taking something that is otherwise could be repetitive and mundane, and you are uh, um, changing the user experience so that I always use the phrase, like, you're helping them create healthy habits by doing these things. And it might be that
Yeah.
it's competitive, it might be that there's some other reward, like badges, ratings and rankings can be affected by those things. But whatever makes sense for your organization to go and do. um, I guess my question is, when you talk to leadership about um, gamification, what do you see as most resonates with leaders about these concepts? And is it like what are you hearing more about now? Like increased engagement with customers or with employees? Is it that they're looking for improved learning outcomes, especially if they're product teams? Learn more about you know folding that learning into the strategy. Is it about customer loyalty? Are there KPIs, or are there business benefits that you see standing out from organizations that are looking at some of these strategies?
The way that we approach it with customers, it's easy to think of gamification as, like a gimmick.
Yep.
So let's say, as you said, okay, we want to apply a point system. Well, why do you want to do that? I don't know, because our customers. So the way we start with customers is to help them understand what gamification is. And gamification is really kind of three key components. You need to take the objective. What is it that the customer wants to achieve? And then you need to have information provided, and then you create the game. So there are three aspects. So in this case, for example, let's take something simple like Amazon, and or purchasing, shopping online. You might think, well, how do you gamify these things? Well, one way to gamify this thing, what does the customer want to do? The customer wants to buy something, and they want to really, the reason why they're doing using shopping online is they want to do it fast, and they want to get the item. So, well, what kind of information can you provide them to make the experience, let's say, more game like? Well, one of the things that they do, they say, well, this is the number of people that bought this thing. But what that does is that on its own, and you might think it's like, okay, what does that for? Well, when you see, let's say, this is the number of people that bought this thing, you're like, now, well, maybe I should buy that thing. So you're actually helping the decision by saying, well, these are the numbers. So you're providing information, you know what the objective is. And now it becomes a game. Well, what do I choose? Instead of having all these choices, you narrow down the choices.
Well,
So
it's not. It's I think the Sarah, to add on to that, it's when you're buying something that's a bit of a commodity, and you're looking. Well, there's 20
mhm,
different options, but these three
yes,
have they've most been purchased or have the highest customer ratings. I think by
yes.
default, Amazon has like the highest customer rating as in their
Mm.
choices. Like this is the like the customer favorite or the recommended
Yeah.
one, and
Or who bought this one, they buy this one. They bought it with this one as well. So these are exactly right. You're like, sometimes companies don't think of that as gamification, but that is gamification, because
Mhm.
what you made it is like uh, it's like, what is, when if you see any, let's say, people who play games, it's all about community. Gaming is the new social media in a way. It's really about like, what are the others doing, what are they, where they're going, where can I kind of engage with them. And that is what gaming online is. And so they don't think, most of when people think of gamification, they think point system, they think like having games, little games to make it, they think just fun. But it's really about, here's the objective, what information can you provide to kind of get people to uh, move towards that objective faster and in a way that is enjoyable. And the word here is more joy than fun. I mean, experience of shopping online doesn't need to become a game, but it needs to be enjoyable. And what is joy for a customer? Getting my stuff fast, that is joy. It doesn't have to be like, oh, it's bells and whistles and colors. It may be actually a highly efficient experience where I get what I want and I get out and I do go to my business. That's a joyful experience. Sometimes it's, right now in Amazon, and I use Amazon as example because people may not think of Amazon as a gamified experience, but one of the things is now you can actually return stuff by without having to print the return or something. You can have it pick up, and that's an option, and they immediately after that and say how much the experience, and that enhances the experience massively. And that is part of gamifying the experience, which is you can buy a lot of stuff really really fast because the risk factor has gone down. That's part of
Mhm.
gamification, because in the game there's not a the chances of losing is not a lot because you can actually play the game again and again and again. So we try to help with our work with companies. We try to help them understand how gamification, the thinking of gamification, can apply to their business rather than thinking about games and and fun.
I was about 12 years ago where you started to see more and more organizations that were saying, hey, we're going to be we're going to make data-based decisions. I know that phrasing that's been around for a lot longer, but that they really started to look at the analytics, the data on usage, so site usage, of feature usage, of whatever it was, and capture that data and help make decisions on future direction, product roadmap, what we're changes to our services, whatever those things are, based on data. It's easy to see how because pulling that data together, and that's part of my background, it's really hard to go and find that. It's coming data from so many different locations. So now with AI growing so rapidly, I see that as an obvious place where AI can help enhance this process. So from your methodology, reaching out, talking with a new client, gathering information, like how are you leveraging AI, or how is AI changing, how you go and build a gamification strategy for a client?
AI is changing the game in many ways. Number one, it actually AI is a great brainstorming partner where it can throw a ton of ideas your way. So it actually helps people avoid this, blank page or creativity block. So in that aspect, there's no excuse anymore for those companies say, "Well, I don't know what to do." So you can actually feed AI a bunch of stuff, and it throws a lot of the ideas are repeated, but at least it's a starting point. And it's like even a bad starting point. We used to have this in creativity, and it's like in a creative agency, we say the best way to get a good idea is to have 1,000 shitty ideas. So that's the so it's not about the quality of the ideas that AI throws. It's that it throws a lot of ideas that get you started. So it's not really that it is going to come up with ideas, but it actually helps you get started. So that's number
Can I
one.
just
The
say
other
that
thing,
that's another
yeah,
thing. You
please,
go look at some of the greatest entrepreneurs, and
yeah,
everybody talks about their successes. Nobody ever talks about how many times they failed leading up to
indeed,
that experience. I mean, there are those freaks of nature that have gone out in their first try, their startup. They dropped out of college, they went and did something, and it was super successful. But I would even look at the number of failures racking up, like to Zuckerberg, for like he had that idea. I don't want to get into the religious discussion of how much of it, the idea he actually created or took from others. I've seen the movie, but for the original idea, it's like, but extremely successful to the nth degree on the Facebook idea, but he's failed in many other categories, and that we kind of brush under the rug. People aren't even aware of some of those failures,
Mhm.
but that's part of that learning, that's part of that refining process to know better about. So when you have like that idea, which is usually actually an iteration of 100 different failures, and then you have that overnight success. That's a lot of what
Absolutely.
AI can,
The
I think, help you kind of work through.
100%. Um, the so AI can help with that. The other thing that AI can help with is the ability to help you um, uh, crunch a lot of data. So personalization requires now if you implement AI is in let's say you have to collect data from the users. But one of the key things that AI can do is the ability to personalize the experience if you implement AI in a certain way so that everyone has a different experience. We see that, for example, Amazon can do it, but Amazon has a ton of money and it's a massive corporation. So when we use it as an example, a lot of small companies will switch off. It's like, I'm not Amazon, I'm not able to do that. Obviously, because Amazon has built an algorithm that shows you, so your experience on Amazon is different, just like your experience on Facebook is different. Well, now AI and the availability of these learning models and the availability of these models that you can plug in through an API and you can use them and to analyze the data that you get and build on models that already been trained over massive amount of data to give you personalization. That is such a powerful tool to make it available to you so that you can provide personalization for your customers. And that is the other area where AI can do massive favor for your business, and make you seem or make you provide something that is superior compared to even if you're just starting.
Mhm. Well, that's yeah, that the personalization factor. I think it's going to be. I mean, just thinking of like marketing tools like HubSpot, and think where HubSpot spot will be in the next 2 to 5 years of anticipating, like watching the feed, pulling intelligence in without even having to manually input that about what's happening, tracking across your company's social platforms and being able to automatically response or feed up possible responses, then let you select the one that you want to respond out there, but also then to give you analytics based on your usage, your customer usage patterns, and this would be the better, you know, social promotion versus paid promotion versus whatever, and then automate all that on the back end. It's just going to, as a marketing guy looking at the future of marketing tech, I mean, I just see where that's going to go. One of my kids, my oldest son, worked for a marketing agency for years, and so we have these conversations about where tech is going and what he's using. And I'm like, ask about something. It's like, Dad, that was like, yeah, like 3 years ago we were doing that, and this is where it is now. I mean, it's moving so fast. That's kind of where we are across the board with a lot of the AI technology. It truly is transforming kind of every line of business, every aspect of the things that we're doing. Anybody says that they know where it's going, that's like that's that's a lie right there. That's as somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about if they say they know exactly where it's going. Because I think it's going to be, that's part of it. It's not just upgrading what we know. It's changing a lot of what we know. No. Anyway,
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I want to ask you very quickly, is there
yeah,
like a lot of background noise coming from my end? Do you hear any background noise?
I don't.
Perfect. Perfect. That's I just want to clarify that so it doesn't ruin the recording. I do have some background noise here.
That's all right.
So the I think to comment on that aspect, in addition to, let's say, using AI, let's say in a tech fashion on, let's say, using whatever experience that you have for the customers, one of the biggest, I think, areas that people are looking at, but I don't think they're looking at it in the right way. For example, having an AI companion for whatever the business is. So that chat element, but a lot of people are thinking about it as like, okay, I can throw in chat just like they used to throw, that little bubble where you can do the customer kind of responses.
Right.
But what chat can do, and as a companion, is you can use it as to give ideas for the customers, like, hey, we've developed our companion where we fed them, let's say, all of our products, all of that, and it can give you ideas. It doesn't necessarily, a lot of them are thinking about, well, it does customer care and introduces the element. No, I wouldn't say replace your people with it, but what it can do is can enhance the experience. I think that's where the biggest value is, instead of just thinking about it as like, let's reduce cost and let's replace people, because then you're putting a lot of the future of the business or the critical aspect of the business in the hands of someone. So let's say if AI answers, and you think about it as a creative person, imagine putting a creative person in the space of, let's say, a customer service. That
Yeah.
doesn't work. It's like bringing, let's say, somebody who's on the floor selling products and bringing somebody from the design department to sell products, because somebody from the design department will say, yeah, we can definitely create that for you, but that will take, let's say, 3 months to create, or they might be talking about an idea in their head. And that's what it's like if you use AI companion to replace, let's say, customer care at the moment, because it sometimes invents the answers. But what
Right.
you want to do is you want it to, but it's great when, let's say, it's brainstorming with the customer. So you can say, here's an AI companion to help you think through what you want to buy, depending on, of course, what you want. It's like, hey, it might actually give you ideas. So that's maybe a better way of using it. So that's one aspect that is, I don't see, you say, used a lot. It's just added on to something, as opposed to saying, hey, here's something that can, here's an aspect of our business. It's like, your own design companion, or stylist, for example, if you're buying clothes. So that's one aspect. The other aspect that we are working with businesses on is self-generating online experiences. So websites are boring, because websites are static,
Static,
or
usually. Right.
yeah, and unless you're a business that has resources to dedicate a team to continue to update your online presence. Whereas what you can do, and what usually people do, is go to Google to ask questions, or now go to ChatGPT to ask, well, what if you combine them both, and you do a website that is self-generating based on information that you have, but it keeps on moving with the person as if where they click. Similar to what, let's say, Amazon does, where when you click on a product, it changes what the product that shows underneath. What if you can do that with the power of AI, where you can actually feed that information to let's say, an AI model, and when you start, you kind of, what we call is, create boundaries, which is the boundaries of the game. Like saying, here are the boundaries of where you play. Here's the information. Now work with the customer, and the customer can say, well, I'm looking for. So it becomes more natural to interact rather than saying, well, you have to define what the categories are. It's like your product, services, whatever. Well, what if I
Right.
want to go in and say, I want to learn about what this company can do for me, let's
Yeah.
say.
Yep.
And the chat can ask back. It's like, well, what is it that you do? And it's like, well, this is what I do. It's like, well, here's what we can do, and they start showing the services, but within the context of what you're looking for.
Right.
So that is what we call them a self-generating online experience. And that's, I think, where it's a gamified way, because it is helping you getting to the objectives that you want to get. And it's
What
working with what do you want to play? Like, you're guiding the experience.
Yeah. It made me think of like my first experience with like a chat bot was back in 2005. So working with a client that
Mm,
wanted to automate like the customer support, and essentially what they were doing is creating, and it wasn't a voice, it wasn't that, it was all text based, but it was just walking through like the FAQs for the support material. And the number one problem with that, and this is like sending people to a phone tree, that people hate that experience because inevitably they have a question or they're asking the right question but in the wrong way, like the system was programmed. And so
yeah.
what we found again and again and again is that people were asking for help in a certain area, but because it wasn't matching up pretty much perfectly to the way that it was entered in, the system was like, I don't understand you, I don't understand that
Mm,
request. Like it there was no wiggle room in there. My first time building a chat bot in the modern tools was about a year and a half ago, where I went in and went through a week long course and built out a chat bot for like a vacation request platform. But just a
mm,
very simple walking through, but modified the logic, did a few other things which were beyond just the out of the box. But and so going in and just testing things out, like training the model. So it had the AI component to it, training the model on, okay, this is a vacation request. Like in the old days, it was you needed to word it like, I am requesting X days of vacation, on this day, whatever. It had to have that format, otherwise it would get confused and lost. This one, like I was able to put in just I did not train it on these words, but I would say like, I need some time off, or I need to get out of here for a few days. That was actually one of my tests. It understood it and
yeah.
redirected. I'm like, I didn't go and train on it. So like the natural language component of this to be able to um that is also dramatically changing how people are feeling about the interactions with some of these agents. You still need to have the data, you still need to have the structure, you still need to keep it refreshed, but that it's going in a direction where, and whether or not it's a support, it's a this kind of like HR tool, or support mechanism, even being able to go in and ask natural language questions about my last month of data, the reporting that I've been building, the project that I've been working, the project status, timesheets of how time is being used, kind of all those things. To be able to go and
Mm.
ask for complex insights, like something as generic as, I need to better understand, like, what should I be watching with this data? Like, what trends am I overlooking that are beyond like these three key things? What else should I be looking at? And for the system to then do that, understand the request, the nature of it's outside of the three things that you mentioned, and then provide back, like, I see this trend happening. You're going to get deeper insights into your systems and data than you might otherwise go and find.
Oh, it's a total game changer. I would certainly agree. I think it's, unless you've used it, you will not you will not understand how much blown away you will be, and how much frustrated you will be. Because if you're a lot of people, when they think of AI, they think, uh, like robots and minions to do the work. But what ends up happening, I think the biggest thing is that an AI's biggest ability is the ability to uh, make choices really fast, and test a ton of them. And that is, I think, like you can feed it a ton of data, and it can crunch it in a split second and say, well, here's the choices that are available. I don't think, just like how the difference between, let's say, writing on a typewriter and the ability to write on Word, or let's say on Google Documents, and the ability to do multiple undos, to share with a ton of people, see the rapid speed. That is what the speed that you're getting, the jump between where we are and or where whatever you're doing, and what you're doing when you're actually working with AI.
Yeah.
When you work with AI, the jump in productivity, and the ability to be faster, and to be more efficient, and to kind of find out what choices you can make. So imagine having to read, a whole document and say, you still have to make judgment. And the other thing, because it can make mistakes. It's like hiring, like a team that is supporting you, but they still can make mistakes. So you still have to be careful, and you have to validate and check. But it's becoming better, and I don't want to celebrate it so much to say, like it's amazing without any. Everything has downsides. Just like, when you work on a document, on a Google, it has multiple downsides. But the difference in productivity and what you can do, and how it changed the customer experience, and how it allows you to personalize and gamify, and introduce something to your business, is quite simply unbelievable. It's unbelievable what you can do, and how much easier it is to run a business when you actually depend on AI, and make it part of your system, because you become better even at using it, and utilizing it, and pointing it at different things.
Yeah, there's a reason why if you look at Gartner has published in the last month their predictions for 2025. The top two,
Mm,
again, the world I work in, I'm a governance guy. That's a lot of what I do and consult around that and work with clients. That's my background. Number one, securing your data, security around your data. Number two is governance, is the interaction with the ongoing operational activities
mm,
around your data, around the knowledge and IP, being at the forefront of their and there's
mm,
I think so much interest in governance as a word, pops up again and again, um,
mm,
because of new releases, things that are out there. The I like that companies that Google, Microsoft, other major players, right at the forefront, they're like, you need to go and get your house in order. You need to manage the life cycle, the data that's behind these tools. It can be like you should walk into this new AI world with your eyes wide open, and not just assume that, hey, it's going to be taken care of back behind the scenes. Like, ultimately you are responsible for what data, what IP that you have in your business, how it gets out based on the tools that you're using. You need to understand how the tools work.
yeah, indeed. Uh, I mean, one of the simplest, the easiest thing is things that are boring. It become far less daunting. Like
Mhm.
changing. One of my favorite ways to use AI right now is the dumb stuff that takes a long time. Like, for example, writing an MOU, and a new MOU. I wrote an MOU. It's already there. That's a memorandum of understanding, let's say,
Mhm.
and I want to do, like, say, similar MOU with another business that has different parameters. And I say, okay, change these things, which I have them already, and make them about this business and this thing. And I changed them very quickly. And I could just plug them in, and it takes like seconds, where it's usually, let's say, a 15-minute, 20-minute job. And it's
A
like,
find and
now it's like
replace, and
one,
sometimes you gotta change a few things,
yeah,
and
yeah,
right, yeah,
exactly.
yep,
One minute, it's so between 1 minute and 20 minutes, that's 20x.
yeah.
And it's not simple. And it's just a matter of like going through it and writing something. And you can just now check it. things that which is has that spending that 20 minutes, I would rather spend them on the creativity and like what do I want to do,
Yeah.
and what I'm thinking about the so for me strategically, especially for people who are, when we talk about collaboration in particular, who are strategists, who are like focused on what the collaboration will be about rather than the details of it. So I would say we're collaborating on this. I wanted to, these are the core important points. Now change the structure of this to reflect what I want to happen, and it can do that in no time.
Right.
These are things that make collaboration faster, instead of going back to the people I'm collaborating with in 3 days. I get back to
Right.
them in 3 hours.
Well,
That is
it,
insane. The speed of collaboration is insane.
the speed of collaboration, but to your point, and I made this point earlier, it's like that you're, you know, 15, 20 years ago, so much of the discussion around collaboration, I go to these conferences, for example, was around keeping the servers up and running and performing and like that. And now, like, those, rarely do we talk about that side because it's services that we're subscribing to. We'll complain about the performance of some of those services and downtime and things like that. But the bulk of the conversation now is around how people are using the technology, what they're doing with it, which was always the purpose. It wasn't running servers that was running these programs. It was utilizing those programs, these services to do more of whatever my company does. And that has been a huge shift. But I do want to, the time that we have, I want to get into also thinking about like immersive technologies. It's funny going
Mm.
back and looking at, because I do an end of year tweet jams, part of CollabTalk, and the December tweet jam is always looking back at the biggest news from the year prior, from the year behind us, and making predictions of the year ahead. And so I have more than a decade of now of these end of year, go back and I've got blog posts and summarized all these things, and they're all out in Twitter X anyway, so you can historically go back and see exactly what people said. But it's interesting that 2 3 years ago, so before the huge push around AI, looking at where the future was going to be focused. So 2 years ago, yeah, so it was December of 2022 and into early 2023. The top topics were augmented reality, a lot of talk around digital avatars, a lot about, I mean, pure VR as well as AR. There was talk about a little bit older there, but wearable devices, AR, VR devices. There was some about spatial computing, but it was really that's kind of where things were. There was such a heavy push around that. Looking forward, so again, I mentioned like what now with more of an AI focus, Gartner has their top two is security and governance. But looking ahead, do you see any prevailing winds around big trends in AI and gamification that businesses and educators should be aware of?
I would say I would say yes, for sure. I mean, the introduction of Apple Vision, the Vision, and then the introduction of what did Mark Zuckerberg call it? I forgot right now. Like the new glasses that they created for Facebook, and the evolution of these models. Um, I think there was first the idea of the metaverse, and as if it's something new. Well, the metaverse already exists. People already play games online and they have a presence online. That's the metaverse. It's like that online space where you actually interact with people, and that's I believe in this, where I think it's the head of Epic Games that said gaming is the new social media. That's where that's where my kids are. That's where everybody meets everybody else. That's online gaming, where you play and engage, and sometimes you speak and you have conversations. I see them sometimes playing and talking on Discord, and moving around between. So the metaverse exists. The experience of the metaverse, how you experience it, that's going to continue to evolve, and that's going to continue to shift. So while maybe we'll get to a place where you put on goggles, and instead of talking through these cameras, we sit and we see 3D. Yeah, but I mean, I mean, video online has been around for 20 years, and chat has been around, and email, and it's already 30 40 years, and it hasn't changed, because it's about what we need. It's not about shifting the experience. Again, requires why, the objective. So why would I go around, like when they put the first the metaverse? Why would I go around, run around to just see a painting where I can just put it on screen, and I don't need to run around in a physical space that is looks like a, or a digital space that looks like a physical space? Because anyway, I hated that experience in the physical space. I wanted to get to what I want really quickly. So it doesn't make sense to create a replica of a world that I don't want. But what I do want is joy and happiness. So, for example, I don't have a big screen that fills the, let's say, the wall, or fills all of my field of view. Putting on goggles to have that is shifting the experience and changing the space, instead of, let's say, building a 3D space where that screen is on, let's say, a wall, and me will going around to see it. So that is, I think, what's shifting. So it had a rocky beginning, let's say, that experience, but it's shifting because there's nothing like, if you've ever put on goggles and 3D goggles, and you've experienced what it's like to be sitting in somebody else's place,
Hmm.
and experiencing, let's say, people talking to you as if you're that person. It's a experience that creates empathy. You can't help but feel what the other person's feeling. So
It's amazing. I've said this a lot. It is amazing, even with not quite very much, not realistic graphics in the VR world. Like your brain adjusts. Like I
yes.
was really, I was a skeptic on the topic, and actually went a couple of years back and went to a demo in person in the education sector of like classrooms and how it could transform that space. And I'm just like, yeah, yeah. And I'm looking at a 2D representation up on the big screen of what the person with the goggles was seeing through their eyes. Then I went and put them on, and it does almost like it's like watching one of those those books that have those complex images of patterns, and then when you concentrate, you see the 3D image in it.
This is something
there's
different. Yeah.
there's probably a name for the kind of drawing, but it was almost
Yeah.
like that once your brain adjusted to it, like it was, I could see how
You cannot
people were
unsee it. Yeah.
drawn to that experience, and it's only going to
Absolutely.
improve. Yeah.
And that's what's happening, is that we fill in the gap and we get used to something. And of course, it's not for everyone. Like, what is it that meme that what is it, was it a meme or question, like, is this dress blue or black? I think it was
Oh yeah,
on
yeah.
Facebook
Yeah,
or whatever.
that's right.
But,
The
yeah,
social meme that's going
people
around.
see
Yep.
different things. We have this idea that everybody's experience is the same, and it's not. People perceive color differently. People, like, hear differently. People see differently, feel differently than others. And I think this is, again, trying to create not one. There's not one technology that everybody will agree on. When it reaches that point, it's a commodity. Like, everybody uses cell phones right now, but even with that, some people still prefer, a certain tactile phone, and some people prefer a phone with a screen. That's always going to be the case. People will have preferences, and I think what ends up happening with such technologies is that what we're seeing, and what we continue to see, is that these technologies continue to open different doors and enable people. They're an extension of us, and and I think we can't ignore a bit of what they can create. Getting you into, it's a gateway to a new world where you can experience things in a completely different way, just like what the internet did. You know, so I think these technologies are going to become far more important. Right now, I can't imagine buying, glasses without using that 3D where you can actually see it on you.
Yeah.
And that's an experience that became, now once you use it, become normal for you, and that's it. So
Right.
imagine when you start, putting your goggles and you see, let's say, the decoration of your home, and that's how you buy stuff. And once that becomes a little bit, one or two does it nicely and accessibly, in a way that is accessible to more people, rather than, let's say, something that is really expensive. Once it reaches that point, that's it. Right now, we use our phones for everything. So if somebody, you can, like, why is your website doesn't work on your phone? Why can't I buy this on the phone?
Yeah.
It becomes an issue. And when people start asking that, like, why can't I see it in 3D or something?
Right.
That's when, you're like, okay, it became now mainstream and everybody's using it. And it's heading that way with
Oh,
these
yeah.
technology
So
becoming better and
I
cheaper.
I'd say that I'm an investor in a company called Reveal It that, so for full disclosure here, but a couple years
Mm,
ago they developed that so that through your phone, so in an augmented reality, so it's looking at your kitchen and you can bring a product down and see it through your phone on your counter and move around, walk around it like it's there, looking at it, change the color of it, and then purchase it right there. I mean, it's just really cool
yeah,
technology. Like I agree with you. It's going to be able to go in and to like I'm going to buy a couch. Like what's the couch buying experience now? Like you've got to go to a showroom and see that. You've got to have measurements of your space because raise your hand if you've had the problem of purchasing a couch that could then not fit down the
definitely.
stairwell down to your basement. And so I had to return it. So, well, anyway, yeah. But to be able to go in and with the augmented reality and look at things like that, to be able to say, well, it's got the dimensions of the couch, and here's it would actually fit, and be able to, I don't know that it does this yet, but walk down my stairwell and share with it by it scanning it and be like, okay, it won't fit down this stairwell no matter how you contort it. Um, things like that. It's going to start like Microsoft has a tool that's more of an industrial augmented reality solution for exactly that. And the demo that they shared, this was like 5 years ago, was moving like a 2-ton piece of machinery onto a factory floor, and they were using this augmented reality experience with goggles to walk the path. Like, how would we actually physically move it? Can we go? Nope, these other machines will block us. That we have to go this way. And then where does it actually fit? Like that kind of experience is only going to be augmented and improved by AI so that it will better understand our requirements, our personalized needs for the solutions, the things that we're seeing, the
Yeah.
solutions that we're doing. Um, again,
Combine
I
this
put
with
on my
AI,
list. Yeah,
combine this with AI, what's going to happen
right.
is like imagine it personalizes the content. One of the biggest fears there is what would happen if you put that on and AI takes you to a world where everything's far more beautiful, far more, the way you want it, and you don't want to get out of there. So, what would happen when that happens? So, I think that is the personalization using the data that is collected from where you look and what you focus on, and what matters to you, and then it changes everything. So you're kind of like into something that you and I mean we've already seen people say what is Apple Vision, or the Apple Vision Pro. They people will put it on and they walk, and now the world you have the augmented world where it's far, let's say, more engaging. But
Yeah,
we'll get to a point where imagine if you're like runner, for example, it will tell you where to run. If you're a car, we already seen those cars that are, I think BMW has that's a display that is augmented where you see it right in front of you, so you start seeing those. So there's a lot of things that will become more useful. Say, hey, this is coming, beware of this, all of that. And there's another way where you start seeing it takes people away to a complete different world. um, it is very interesting, and we'll see how that goes. But I think bottom line for businesses, you cannot ignore it. You cannot say, this is something that you don't want to engage with, or it's not interesting enough, or at the very least you want to, let's say, play around with it.
pilot. Yep.
And
You,
yeah,
yep.
exactly. And I mean, just explore, play around. I say, learn at least, play around and test a few things, and apply it at least to a limited part of your business, not the main business. Apply it to a certain thing that it doesn't hurt if it fails there. But what that gives you is that you're ahead of 90% of the other businesses who have
Yeah.
not even started. Imagine yourself if you had your Facebook page done in 2008, not in 2012, when after
Yeah.
4 years, when people like, it's like
Everybody had it.
at the time,
Right.
2008, people like, should you have a Facebook page? Is Facebook for business? Can you remember that? And now, like, can you
Right.
imagine people? Facebook is
Well,
like,
somebody asked that
who's
right now.
yeah. Yeah, it's the
Well,
same thing people ask. Like, should business have a website? Should business have a TikTok? It's the same question we always ask.
yeah.
And the answer is not should you or should you not. The answer is, of course, you should always be experimenting and seeing what will pick up with your audience? Because instead of saying, well, now everybody has this, I have to have it. No, you should be the first to test with your customers, and they're going to appreciate that, because then if you pick up with a small community and they start, you start seeing, hey, people like this thing that I've tested. You can start picking up and start to enter it into your business slowly, and that will make you a pioneer in an area.
Well, it's why I say that for organizations that are looking to get started with, implementing AI and gamification, the foundational step is piloting, playing with it, trying things out, being at least have an understanding of what it is. And I mean, I'm a huge advocate for a formal pilot to go and like take a real project. So as you say, something that's it's not gonna be the main project, the main initiative that's out in front, that if it went wrong, went sideways, you've burned a lot of people and time and money and expense and all those other things. But have something that has KPIs, that will have an impact in the business, to go and do a pilot around, so you can actually see and measure value of that trial, but have ongoing experimentation. Like, everybody needs to have a little bit of R&D inside their organization. Otherwise, you will be left behind when it takes the next leap.
Yeah, and that's why collaboration works very well, because you don't have to build up the expertise. One of the ways that you can actually test these things is to collaborate with other companies, because a lot of these companies who want to, that's actually the essence of how we came up with the model of working at Decentrum, is that we realize a lot of those companies look at these areas and they want to do something, but they're fearful of like what it means. Where do we start? I was like, well, we'll come in, we'll bring in our expertise, we'll reduce the risk, and we'll try it in something outside your business, see where it goes, and then you can embed it again. It's kind of like it's acquisition, but instead of waiting for a company to build something, whatever, and acquire it, let's say for hundreds of millions of dollars later, you can now do it, for a couple of million. And that's like, and we can build it for you, bring that experience. So collaboration is key, I think, and because at the speed that things are going, you cannot build everything internally, and you cannot wait for the market to present you with the opportunities. Collaboration opens up opportunities and brings something new to your market, and you start being seen by your customers and by your community as an entity that drives innovation and drives transformation rather than wait for it.
Yep, completely agree. Listen, Hussein, I really appreciate your time. I know it's late there. Really, yeah, thank you for doing this while out on the road. But great discussion. I mean, obviously, we could go on for another hour or so talking about other immersive technologies, but AI is touching just about everything, and so it's a great area to discuss. But thank you so much for your time, and safe travels.
Thank you, Christian. I loved the conversation with you. It's so easy to talk to you, and such great, interesting questions. So thank you for having me. And looking forward to see how this comes up, and also looking forward to a future conversation as well.
You've been listening to the CollabTalk Podcast. New episodes are published weekly, and you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and most other podcast platforms. Thanks for listening.